Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to be making kind of a Tex-Mex dinner or a chip and dip dinner. We're going to be making chicken flautas with guacamole, corn salsa, and tomato salsa. So really just like a chip and dip kind of dinner. So we're going to start off by making our chicken for our filling for our flautas. I'm going to be using some hand-pulled rotisserie chicken or shredded chicken. It's just nice and easy and quick. You could also saute up some chicken breast or some roasted chicken. We're gonna put a little bit of olive oil in our skillet. I'm gonna turn on my heat to about a medium high, and I'm gonna put in some of this chicken, breaking it up, because we're gonna make a nice little seasoning for it, using some smoky chipotle paste and some fiesta seasoning. So we're just gonna shred it up in here. This is what we're gonna be filling our taquitos with once we have it nice and kind of stewed. There we go. And another big, shred these apart. A little bit of chicken actually goes a fairly long way with flautas. You don't need as much as you think. And I think after this, we should have a good amount of shredded chicken. You could also just buy a rotisserie chicken at like Publix or Kroger or wherever and then use that. I'm gonna just give my hands a quick rinse because they've got some shredded chicken on them. Okay, we have our skillet heating up and we are going to add some Mexican fiesta seasoning, which is essentially just has like cumin, chili pepper in it. It's very mild, but has a good Mexican flavor to it. We're gonna add about a teaspoon of that. And then we're gonna add in some smoky chipotle. I love this, it's like better than bouillon. I think it adds a really great flavor to it. So we're gonna add in about a nice like half a teaspoon of this, and then we're going to add in some liquid, and this is just so we can kind of stew up our chicken with the flavors and kind of get that slow cooked chicken like feel to it. So I'm going to pour in about a half a cup of water, and we're going to let this season. I'm going to give it a good toss with some tongs to mix up the flavors. If you could also mix in some like canned tomatoes or diced tomatoes in here if you wanted to, but my kids aren't the biggest fan of tomatoes, so we're just gonna do it with these. But you wanna make sure you get everything mixed around well, and then we're gonna let it warm up. But this is gonna kind of give it that as if it's been like slow cooking in the chipotle kind of flavors. There we go. And then we're gonna let that stew up while we start prepping our dips. We're gonna have guacamole. We're gonna have 3 avocados for our guacamole, and then a corn salsa and a regular tomato salsa. So I think we'll start by chopping up our onion first. We're gonna be using a red onion since these are dips. I find that red onions taste much better than like a yellow onion. White onions work well, they have a bit more of a kick. So red onions are definitely for those who prefer more mild, less spice to it. And that would be me and my family. We are not spice peoples, but if you wanted to spice these up, just get either jalapeno or poblano peppers and dice them up, and you can add them to each one of our little dips for a bit more kick. But again, we're kind of spice babies here. And I'm gonna do a pretty fine chop on them because I don't want to have huge chunks of onions in my salsa or my guac or any of my dips. But I want the flavor there, just I don't want to be eating big pieces. So we're just doing a nice, kind of really small chop. Bigger than a mince, but a smaller than a dice. So just somewhere in between. And we're gonna take we're gonna divide this up into our 3 bowls. because these are what we're gonna use for help seasoning our dips. And one thing that's great about this is these are 3 different dips, but they all taste delicious and use very similar seasonings. I'm gonna break some of this chicken. It's bubbling nicely. Let's do it. Now we're gonna chop up our bell pepper. You could use a spicy pepper like a poblano or a jalapeno, but we're just gonna use a bell pepper. And when I'm using bell peppers, I typically try to use either the yellow, orange, or the red, simply because I think they have a nicer flavor profile than the green peppers. Green peppers, I think, are a bit more bitter. They don't have as much naturally occurring sugar in them as the red, yellow, and orange bell peppers do. So I typically don't like to use them as much because I think these taste better. And I'm gonna give it a small kind of dice similar to my onions as well, because I don't want them to be overpowering in my dips either. There we go. And I'll chop up the rest of it. And the way I do my peppers is I just literally slice off the top, and then you can easily poke out the stem and pull out the inside really easy. And that way you don't have a lot of seeds anywhere, and you're not wasting any of your pepper. There. And chop up the head of it nice into these small dices. And then I'm just gonna go over real quick one more time, because again, I really want it to be nicer, smaller bites of peppers. There we go. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna divide it up equally between my bowls. There we go. A little bit more in that one. And then we have our tomatoes. So I'm gonna put one bit of tomatoes in our guacamole, and then the rest is gonna be in our tomato salsa. We'll see, I think we'll start with 3 and we'll see how they are. I'm gonna take out where the stem is, just gonna poke in and cut that out, because that won't taste good. It'll be very tough and chewy. When you're cutting tomatoes, you wanna make sure you have a really sharp knife, because if it's not sharp, your blade will slip on the tomato skin and you're more likely to cut yourself. We have a nice good simmer here, so I'm gonna turn it down a little bit more, and then I'm gonna use my tongs to break up any of my slightly bigger pieces here. There we go. And then we're gonna dice these up as well. And I'm gonna cut them into fairly small pieces like you would find in a homemade salsa. There we go. Nice thing you could use, these are just vine ripe tomatoes. You could use plum tomatoes if you wanted, or if you really wanted to take the time, if all you had were like cherry tomatoes at home, you could cut those up. You could quarter those and just have slightly bigger chunks in there if you wanted. There's one. And then we'll do the same through. And again, if your knife is sliding or getting caught on your tomato skin, that means you just need to sharpen it up with your honing steel, which if you have a knife set, it's gonna be that long rod in your knife set. Most people forget to sharpen their knives, and they'll be really dull. And it might feel daunting going and doing it, but once you get the hang of it, it's quite easy, and it doesn't take long to sharpen up a knife. There we go. I'm gonna put a little bit in here this is gonna be for my guacamole. And then I think the rest we're gonna put in with our tomato salsa. I'm gonna cut up my last one and put it in there as well. So just use 3 tomatoes for, we have lots of different dips, so they'll work well. And then we will start prepping the rest for our salsas. The corn salsa, if you've ever had Chipotle's like their sweet corn salsa. This is essentially tastes just like it. It's one of my favorite dips. I just love it. It's so fresh and vibrant. It has such a great flavor to it. I could eat a whole bowl of it. Okay, here is for our fresh salsa. Let me give my hands a quick wipe because they're a little bit wet. And we got that up. Before we got our avocados, we're going to chop up some green onions. The green onions we're going to use for the corn salsa. And we have a little bit of the red onions in here. This just adds like another fresh kick of onion to the flavor of it. And we're going to do a nice small slice up. Just pushing them through, and then I will stop once we get a little bit towards the end, because the very ends of your green onions can be a bit chewy. So I kind of leave this last bit out and I just toss it because they don't necessarily crunch up nicely. They've lost a lot of their liquid as after they've been picked. And we've got our green onions in there, and we're gonna put some corn. This is gonna be for the corn salsa. We're gonna mix everything up in just a second. We're just prepping our ingredients for the time. And looks like so I used frozen corn. I had it sitting out for a little bit, so it should be kind of nice and cold, and but not completely frozen. And let's prep, before we get to the avocados, let's start prepping some of our taquitos to fry up. I'm just gonna flip my cutting board so I have a dry surface to work on. And we're gonna put some olive oil in our larger skillet over here, because we're going to be frying these up in the olive oil, but you don't need to have them completely submerged. So you don't need to fill your pan up with olive oil. That just wastes whatever oil you have. You just want enough that the bottom of them are kind of covered completely. So don't feel that you have to add enough to completely submerge them, because we'll flip them. And we're gonna let this warm up, and we are going to fill our little taquitos. So with these, the way I start out with them is you're simply just making kind of like a chicken burrito. And then you'll lay them in there with the fold side down, and that will help crisp them together. So I like to put a little bit of cheese first, and then I'm gonna take my chicken that I have over here that's stewing in those chipotle seasonings, and we'll lay them across, and then I'll put a little bit more cheese on top, and then we're gonna wrap them up, and we'll just have it sit like that upside down until we're ready to transfer them to our oil, where we will saute them up. So just a little bit of cheese, and we'll put our chicken in. If you want more of a creamy Mexican flavor, you could put in some sour cream in our mix while it's cooking, and that will give you more of a creamy, cheesy flavor in there. But my kids just like to dip the fried taquitos in sour cream, so we don't need, I just keep it out because my husband's not a big sour. We've got our cheese, and the one thing also when you're making these is you don't want to overfill them. You want to be able to hold them together just by lying down flat like that. If they're overfilled, they won't hold together, and then they'll fall apart, which will be really hard to then fry them up. You could also put like a toothpick in to hold them together if you want, but I find they fry together just fine without the toothpick. Put a little bit of cheese and some of our stewed chicken, and then a little bit of cheese on top. And we'll hold them like that. So this will be our first batch to go in. And let's see, are we getting almost? The way I know when my oil is hot is I do a little drip test where I just drop a little bit of water in it. If it doesn't instantly bubble up, it's not hot enough yet. So we are actually at a good temperature because we've got a good bubble. So I'm just gonna start by laying our taquitos in, and you see we're already getting an instant bubble on them. You could also use tongs at home if you are a little bit scared of working with olive oil or oil. You could just use some tongs. There we go. And we're gonna let them, I'm gonna turn my heat down to a 6 because I don't wanna burn them. And we can work on our guacamole while we wait. So I'm just gonna cut open my avocados. When I buy avocados, I actually buy them in bulk from Costco, and I let them sit out on the counter for like a day or two until they're ripe, and then I pop them in the refrigerator. That way they don't go bad. But you gotta make sure you ripen them out on the counter before you pop them in. Otherwise, they won't ever ripen up well. Let's get our avocado in here. And see, these are getting ready to flip. Well, that guy got a little bit much, but still good. Turn it down a little bit. Hang on. Let me get out a baking sheet, because what we will do is we will take them out. You're going to want to put paper towels. This will pick up any of the extra oil when we take them off. But they cook fast. That's the beauty of it. This is a meal that you can get cooked up really quick. I'm going to prep my next set so they're ready to go in when I take these guys out. The key is you don't want to have your oil on too hot. If you have your oil on too hot, you'll see mine didn't burn, but I would have liked them a little, like a shade lighter. But if you have them if your oil's too high, you'll burn them before you've gotten anything melted inside. So if you keep your oil around medium, you can heat it up and then turn it down. And once you put food in there, your oil will cool down, so it won't cook quite as fast. So here's a nice golden color that we want. Beautiful. So we've got our nice golden brown, and this gives a nice crispy shell to ours. And then I'm gonna wrap these two up, and we'll put them in there. And always fold them or fry them folds down. If you try to fry them with the fold up, they'll fall apart. Make another one. And we just do some cheese, some stewed meat, and you could also do this with like a pulled pork. If you put like a butt roast in the Instapot and you let it slow cook, this would work really well with that. Let those three cook. We'll start popping out the rest of our avocados for our guacamole. I love guacamole. This is one of the things that everybody in my family loves. Even like my 1-year-old, he just eats the guacamole straight, like straight up avocado mash. There we go. And I just season my guacamole with fresh lime juice and garlic salt. You don't need much. Let's see if these guys need a flip. Beautiful. Get our avocado out. One last one. There. Peel off the skin. I find it's easier just to peel off the skin than to try to scoop it all out. If your avocados are ripe, they'll come off the skin quite easily. And now, let me make up a few more of these, and then we'll finish up our 3 dips. And pretty much our last ingredients on our dip is just adding a little bit of garlic salt, lime juice to them. And that kind of finishes them off really well with a nice flavor. And then some cilantro for the salsa and the corn salsa. Let's get these guys layered up in here. I think I have just enough for these two left. But again, that chicken goes a long way, makes quite a few taquitos. And they're fairly good in size. They're not like those teeny ones that you buy in a restaurant or at the grocery store. There you go. Got a nice golden shell on it. And then we're gonna put our last ones in and we'll let those saute up. And again, you don't want to overstuff them. If you overstuff them, they'll fall apart. And while they'll still taste good, they'll be very messy. Okay. Now, we can finish up on our dips while we wait. So, we're gonna need to add lime juice to our guacamole. So I'm gonna use one whole lime for my guacamole, and I'm gonna really squeeze it all out there because the lime juice is gonna give a very vibrant flavor to it, and it also will help keep the avocados from oxidizing and turning brown. There we go. Also, for your avocado or your limes to be more juicy, if you keep your limes in the fridge, just pull them out like an hour before you're ready to use them and let them get up to warm temperature, and the juice will come out much easier. And then we're going to use the old-fashioned garlic salt. I find the garlic actually adds a wonderful flavor to the guacamole, and we like a lot of garlic salt in there. But you kind of salt it to taste. But you're going to need more salt than you think because avocados really have no flavor or any saltiness to them. They take on whatever flavor you want. I'm going through with a fork and I'm just mashing through my avocados.
Hey, there's a comment. That's interesting. Try zesting the lime in there.
Oh, you know what? I've never done that, but that would actually probably be really good because lime zest is wonderful. You know what I had one time, and I will tell you it was terrible? Somebody put pomegranate, like seeds, in their guacamole. They're like, they taste like tomatoes. It was so gross. So never try that. But that lemon zest or lime zest would probably be pretty delicious. There we go. So we have our guacamole. There's like a Dr. Jean song that always stuck in my head. It's like for kids that I always think of. Okay, let's pull these out. We got a nice golden crisp over here. And so we've got our taquitos all fried up. Let's finish up making these dips. So for our corn salsa, we are also going to be adding juice from one fresh lime. It just really brightens up the things. I think the acidity of it, and it melds with the flavors as well. Just works really nice. So we gotta get all of that juice in there. There we go. And last but not least, where are you? I'm using up some fresh cilantro. So we're gonna chop up this, and I'm gonna put some of this in my salsa as well. Gotta get the last of it. And we're gonna do a quick mince on our cilantro. I don't put it in the guacamole because not all of my kids like it in their guac. So I kind of hold it out from there, but I do put it in the salsa and the corn salsa. And then I'm gonna go over it. And you're gonna wanna chop it up really fine. if you didn't, the fun fact, when cilantro is dried, it is no longer called cilantro, it's called coriander. It does not have the same flavors or effects, so you cannot replace dried cilantro with, or coriander with cilantro. Does not work. I also find that if you feel like cilantro has a dish soap taste to it, you technically have like a genetic mutation on your gene that allows you to taste it. But it's an enzyme that breaks down in fresh cilantro that you pick from your garden, that if you eat it right away does not have that flavor because the enzyme in the cilantro hasn't broken down yet. So, fun facts. We're gonna give it a little bit of garlic salt as well. And we're gonna stir it up. And so this was just our chopped up peppers, corn, green onions, red onions, lime juice, cilantro, and we have a lovely corn salsa, which tastes very similar to Chipotle's corn salsa. And then last but not least, we have our salsa, our homemade salsa, and I'm also going to be putting in, I'm just going to be using a half of a lime for in here. And you could add, if you wanted to add a little bit of kick, you could add jalapeno peppers, or you could add a pinch of Tabasco sauce. But again, we are big wimps here. We don't handle the heat well. And then garlic salt. And some people, if they don't have lime juice, they'll add a pinch of like balsamic vinegar, and the acidity to it really helps bring out the flavors in the tomatoes, and kind of gives you that kind of tart flavor that they have in like canned salsas. We'll give this a nice stir. And what's nice is you essentially are only using one pepper, half of an onion, and they split between all three of them to make 3 delicious dips. That's why we call it, that's kind of our chip and dip dinner. So we have our 3 salsas that we'll be eating with it. And I will now show you how we're gonna serve this guy up. So we will have 2 taquitos, or flautas, whatever you want. And then we have lots of chips that we'll be serving with them, but we have our tomato salsa. My kids love to dip their flautas in the guacamole. So we'll do a big serving of guacamole. And you have your corn salsa. So we have all of our dips, and then whatever tortilla dip you want to have with it. But we like the good old scoops. And boom, that is dinner tonight. Simple, easy. We made it in less than 30 minutes. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live cooking shows every single day, try to teach you some basic cooking techniques, and just so you guys can learn and be comfortable in the kitchen. Again, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.